Good morning, St. Paul's. This is Miss Rose here to talk to you more about your project in literary devices. And if you are here and you are not a St. Paul's School student, that's awesome. If you skip forward a little bit in this video, you'll get to see some interesting help with literary devices in To Kill a Mockingbird from the first 10 chapters of the book. However, if you're one of my students in 8th grade, hi, welcome. This is your assignment. You should have it open on your iPads as well. And I'm going to use this video to give you instructions and notes regarding the literary devices that we find most prominently in To Kill a Mockingbird and that we should be looking to track. The only one on here that I think is valuable is symbolism, which I introduce here in this excellent original cover of the book, or maybe not the original, but a more recent cover of the book where we can see some of our characters standing up in some symbolic imagery. But backing up, let's talk about what a literary device is. A literary device is a literary or linguistic technique that produces a specific effect for the reader, enhancing their experience with the text. So this is one of the ways that authors make choices to add depth to their literature. If there was no use of literary devices, when you read something, you'd be like, ugh, why? Or who wrote this? Or with what purpose? Because literary devices add depth to our understanding of everything. In fact, I find that often, and especially at like an 8th grade level, they really impact the text in 3 good ways. We can think about the ways that they change the plot or the reader's experience with the plot. Think about something like creating suspense and how that slows down the plot of a play, or in this case, a book, a novel. Or think about something that a device that might emphasize who a character really is, considering perhaps tone, or one of our literary devices that will it could be an imagery or even a point of view that tells us more about who a character is and how they experience the world. And finally, we have figurative language, which is ways that authors are looking to add depth through how they actually write their words, to create beauty or artistic value using language through diction, alliteration, similes, assonance, things like that. So in addition to sort of like these 3 reasons, I've kind of like expanded that in reasons that authors use literary devices, which you should have copied and put on a sticky note in your book at some point earlier in this year. Authors use literary devices to increase their reader's connection through characterization or plot to help us understand and picture that moment, and especially we'll see today to emphasize a theme or a perspective. So let's make sure that we are thinking about that as we move through our assignment. So speaking of what is the assignment, Miss Rose? Well, you have a project. You will be working on this project all week while I am at DC. I recorded this video in 2023 in case I'm showing it again in future years. So you'll have 3 class periods while I am gone, plus any necessary homework time to complete this project. It will be due before school when we return on Tuesday, April 11th. That should be plenty of time to complete this. In order to complete this assignment, you're going to follow along with me in this video to gather the definitions of these literary devices and type them in your documents. You're going to read my examples and analysis for inspiration, and we'll talk about that a little in this video together. And then individually, you're going to find examples of these literary devices at work in To Kill a Mockingbird, chapters 11 through 13. So 12 and 13, at least again in the year 2023, 12 and 13 were the chapters that you had to have read for homework due today. And then chapter 11 we read in class. So you have sort of some chapters to pull from where you've had a little more support and some where you have not. However, you must spread your choices out. I like amongst better, but fine. You must spread your choices out among the 3 chapters, which means that I need to see at least 1, if not 2 examples from each chapter. So that means that there are 10 literary devices to come. 2 of them should have examples from chapter 11, 2 of them should have examples from chapter 12, 2 of them should have examples from chapter 13, and the remaining 4 can be sort of at your choice. You will then analyze each of these examples that you have chosen to talk about how the literary device is shown and to what effect. So this video is going to discuss the first 3 of these devices that you will work on, and that will be sort of today's checkpoint. You will finish that up today in class with the rest of class and for homework tonight. And then tomorrow in class or your next class period, you'll do the next 3, and the class after that, you'll do the final 4. All right, so let's start with diction. Diction's definition, hopefully you already know, but again, this is all about review. This is specific word choice. Specific word choice is important because it's going to develop characters, how characters might speak, for example. It's also definitely going to be a figurative language device in terms of creating beauty or emphasizing another literary device. So I added these here just to give you a general sense of some of your better choices. This is not to say that diction does not impact plot. It often does. But I find that most often it is those 2 things. So my example that I found from chapters 1 through 10 that includes great diction is actually page 7 of the novel, the 1st through the 3rd paragraphs. There are words in those paragraphs, including words such as inhabited, unknown, entity, mere, and I put like a bit of the quote from and showed which words I was particularly interested in. After I found this quote, right, that I knew showed diction, my next step was to analyze it. So I looked at my question. How is the literary device shown and to what effect? 2 parts. So see how I have this part underlined? I did that in all the examples down here so you can see really where I am pointing out that it exists and analyzing the effect of it. Your answers must have both. So in this case, I wrote that the diction sets up that Scout is young, but her diction is very mature, right? Or rather, the diction of these paragraphs set up a contrast. That Scout is very young, but her diction is very mature, adding to her characterization. I should edit the wording of this later. Whatever. Her diction is juxtaposed against her age, creating contrast and helping the reader to understand that Scout is not a normal 7-year-old. Additionally, the use of strong diction in this section helps emphasize the spookiness of Boo Radley. Ooh. So here it is. I'm pointing it out that the diction is mature. That's what it is. And then my purpose is that it characterizes. It's juxtaposed against her age, creates a sense that she is not a normal girl. Plus, I added the spookiness of Boo Radley. Without this example, it is still an A example. However, I'm an English teacher, so I type on and on. When you go to do this on your own, this is where you will then type your own example and then analyze here. So you will type me an example in your analysis. Give me something like I do up here where I both have a page number and kind of how to find the paragraph, because I will check your examples. Our second literary device is tone. Tone is the author's attitude towards a subject. Hold on. Boop. There you go. Just in case anybody needs to pause there. Great. So tone is the author's attitude towards the subject at hand, whatever that subject is. Tone is always created through diction because in order to convey tone, you have to have specific choice of words to do so. So I have a bit of an example here to sort of help you think about that, and you'll type in these spots too. So describing a puppy as lovable, so that's my diction, leads me to believe that the tone might be warm or positive. And granted, if I had more, I'd be able to determine more, a more like correct tone, I suppose. But like, fine. Versus, I can describe the puppy with a different word. Instead of lovable, I can say that the puppy is fierce, which might make the tone more direct or scared or scary or frightening, right? And depending on how else I described him, it would change what my tone is. I picked a tone from page 20 in the top paragraph. The quote that I chose reads, "Now that I was compelled to think about it, reading was something that just came to me as learning to fasten the seat of my union suit without looking around." I analyzed this by writing that the tone of this example is compassionate. So I said what the tone is, that the tone is compassionate and loving, shown in how Scout discusses reading. She compares it, reading, metaphorically to the simple task of fastening her belt to develop this tone. The compassionate tone tells me, or tells a reader, a lot about who Scout is as a character and also about Harper Lee. They both value education above all else. So how do I see it? Here is what that tone is and how it is created through, in my case, created through metaphor. It could also be created just through what words we use, right? Perhaps instead of, if your example might instead say shown in how Scout discusses reading, it might be shown using diction like blah, blah, blah. She compares it metaphorically to the simple task of fastening her belt, and then I connect it to being a characterization device in particular, because I talk about how it shows me who Scout is, and also the author, because tone is really how the author feels about things. So I should learn something about my author generally when I'm thinking about tone. There's your spot for your own example. Mood. Mood is one that I have avoided thus far throughout the year, because tone and mood are two of the most easily mixed up literary devices. So hopefully this helps you to get them straight. First, I'm going to copy and paste it here. Then I'm going to pause. Whoever's showing this video could pause it so they can type. Okay, so the definition of a mood is it's the atmosphere of the story. This is how you, the reader, feel as you read, not the author, which is tone. That's the main difference. Hey, how you, the reader, feel. This is also created through diction, as well as other figurative language devices. Think pacing or foreshadowing or similes, etc. My example, where I feel something, not the author, comes here from the last line on page 45. This line reads, "I had heard another sound, so low I could not have heard it from the sidewalk. Someone inside the house was laughing." So this refers to when Boo Radley is laughing inside the house. We think it's Boo Radley, right? We don't actually know who is laughing inside the house after Scout bumps into it in the tire. I analyze this by talking about the mood of the section being let's do that like that so we can see it, being spooky. So again, just like in tone, I define what the mood is, right? And then I talk about how it's created and why it's created. So the mood of the section is spooky. Harper Lee uses a short sentence, that's another literary term called syntax, to end this chapter on a cliffhanger where we don't know if this was Boo or not, or why he was laughing. So I've defended the spookiness, and here's why she did it. By ending with this short sentence, Harper Lee gives her reader the chills, establishing an eerie mood or rather it should be like through figurative language. You could change that or not, that's fine, whatever. Again, you have space to type and find. Those are the first 3 that we will discuss in this video, partially because it's good to break these things up and do it step by step, and also kind of because I need to go teach some more kids about some history stuff. I will see you tomorrow back with another version of this video that discusses the next 3 or maybe 4 literary devices. Thank you, St. Paul's. Have a good afternoon or morning.